One of the best things you get to do at night is getting to go sleepy time, that blissful embrace of sleep that will take you away to experience stuff in your dreams that you could probably only imagine in real life if you were off your tits on acid. But during this time, the spooky boys can come and pay you a visit and give you a nightmare you'll never forget. Nightmares can come in all shapes and sizes, and their content can range from simple everyday life to even something you've seen in a movie film. And one such movie film that continues to give people nightmares to this day is A Nightmare on Elm Street.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
A Nightmare on Elm Street is a 1984 horror movie film directed by horror legend Wes Craven. Craven was the director of a number of well-known films, such as The Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, The People Under the Stairs, Red Eye, and the Scream series. But probably his most famous and iconic creation was Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Our movie film begins with Tina being stalked by a terrifying creature. Jesus Christ, Tina, you probably scared the shite out of the poor thing. Tina stumbles about the place and ends up in a creepy boiler shed, only to discover that our man Freddy Krueger is stalking her. Tina says fuck this and runs away, very, very slowly. Fucking run faster, you mad idiot. She somehow manages to find a place to hide from the spooky boy, but only for a little while. Fucking hell. Oh, thank fuck, it was only a dream. Or was it? The next day we meet our cast of victims, or as they like to be called, Nancy, Rod, and yes, Johnny Depp in his first ever role as Glenn. After being scared shitless or shirtless from her spooky dream last night, Tina begs her friends to come over and spend the night with her as she's afraid to go sleepy time. So later that night, our gang are hanging out and we learn that Freddy really gets about the place, as he wasn't just the man of Tina's dreams because he also paid Nancy a visit.
What'd you dream? I dreamed about a guy in a dirty red and green sweater. You dreamed about the same creep I did.
A noise from outside spooks the kids, and this being a horror film, you bet all three of them decide to go check it out, only for Glenn to get speared out of nowhere. But it turns out it's only Rod having a spot of tomfoolery, but it isn't Glenn that he's come here to fool around with.
Me and Tina got stuff to discuss.
You know what that means. Yep, a spot of riding. While Tina and Rod go at it, Nancy has a different sort of gentleman caller. Having been totally wrecked from a spot of riding, Tina has gone sleepy time and finds herself wandering her dreams again. Jesus, she'll catch her death out in just that. But it isn't long until Tina runs into our old friend from the boiler shed, Mr. Freddy Krueger himself, who stretches his arms about the place like he's Mr. Fan-fucking-tastic busting a move. Back in Dreamland, Freddy is scaring the absolute bejesus out of Tina, which causes Rod to jump out of bed, only to see Tina slide up the walls like she's feckin' Spidey-Man or something. Tina is clearly getting all sorts of fucked up by Freddy, but there's nothing Rod can do to help her. Hashtag dushed. Nancy and Glenn burst through the door, only to find Tina dushed and that Rod has gone right out the feckin' window. Way to make yourself look innocent, Rod. But don't you worry, because Nancy's outlaw Donald is a local police officer who begins to investigate the case. But Nancy's parents question if she's taken this whole murder thing the right way.
Maybe you don't think murder is serious.
How can you say I don't take her seriously?
Murder? Sure isn't it a bit of crack? The next day, as Nancy's mother enjoys having vodka for breakfast, Nancy decides that the best thing to do to get over the horrific death of her friend is to go back to school. But wouldn't you know it, that mad bastard Rod jumps out of the bushes and grabs Nancy, and he very angrily tries to tell her he's innocent.
Don't look at me like I'm some fucking fruitcake or something.
But then Donald sneaks up like a feckin' ninja and arrests Rod with other officers. Even after all this excitement, Nancy is still determined to go to school. Now, the last place you want to be while trying to stay awake is school, so of course Nancy goes sleepy time. But who decides to pay Nancy a visit in her dreams? That's right, 'tis Tina, sporting a stylish body bag.
Tina?
Jesus Christ, she's making an absolute state of the feckin' place. That'll take hours to get out now. Nancy thinks, you know what would be a great idea? To follow my clearly dead friend down into this creepy boiler room. And wouldn't you know it, Freddy is there waiting for her.
Come to Freddy.
With nowhere to go, she says, fuck it, I'll burn myself. After absolutely losing the run of herself in class and discovering that her arm is also burnt in real life, she decides that the best thing to do is visit Rod in jail. While there, Rod tells Nancy that Tina was killed by an invisible man and reveals that he too dreamt of Freddy.
There was this guy.
He had knives for fingers.
Wait a second, are we sure it's Freddy killing these kids? As this sounds like someone else we might know. Later on, Nancy decides to forget her worries with a nice warm bubble bath. But that pervert Freddy is back and trying to drop the claw on Nancy. But then decides it's just best to drag her under the water to kill her. Luckily for Nancy, her mother wakes her up and she escapes her deadly bubble bath. Later that night, Glenn sneaks into Nancy's room and she tells him to watch over her as she goes inside her dream to try to find Freddy again. In the dream world, Nancy decides to go check in on Rod at the police station, only to find that Freddy is being a sound man tucking Rod into bed. And wouldn't you feckin' know it, Tina is back again, and still making an absolute state of the place. Freddy wants to play a spot of peekaboo, but Nancy is having none of it, so a chase begins. Nancy legs it into her house, and she runs into some marshmallow steps. Oh, that's kinda gack. And look, feckin' Tina is back again! Ah, 'tis yourself, Freddy. How are you getting on? Nancy legs it to her room, only to find that useless shy Glenn has gone sleepy time, just as Freddy bursts through the door. Freddy absolutely murders Nancy's pillow just before her alarm wakes her up. And Nancy really isn't happy with Glenn that he went sleepy time.
Glenn, you bastard.
What'd I do?
I just asked you to do one thing. Just stay awake and watch me. Just wake me up if it looked like I was having a bad dream.
And you couldn't even do that, you useless shite. But there's no time to lose as they gotta get to the police station to warn them that Rod is in danger. I'm sure he's safe and sound in his cell. Hashtag dushed. Nancy's parents think she's as mad as a bag of spiders, so they decide to bring her to a sleepy time doctor. They run a test on her as she sleeps, but wouldn't you know it, Freddy is up to his old tricks again. She gets so scared from her dream that her hair turns feckin' white, and she's somehow taken a souvenir from her dream.
I brought something out from my dream. Where did you get that? I grabbed it off his head.
Later on, while having a burger with Glenn, Nancy learns the best way to push the dream monster is to say, "Here, look, you ain't real, so feck off away with ya." It also looks like she's taken up a new hobby.
Booby traps and improvised anti-personnel devices?
This was clearly Kevin McAllister's favourite book as well. Returning home to find it now more of a prison, Nancy's vodka-induced mother tells her how she and a bunch of other parents rounded up Freddy, who was the local pedo, and burnt him alive and made him all crispy.
He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him.
Mother of the year! But this doesn't put Nancy off, as she has a plan. She's gonna pull Freddy out of the dream into the real world so she can dust him. But she needs Glenn to help her. What in the name of fuck is this lad wearing? Anyway, Nancy tells the always reliable Glenn her plan and how they are going to bust Freddy. But there's one very important part of it that Glenn must do.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
So of course, being the useless shite that he is, Glenn falls asleep. Only for this to happen. With her boyfriend now dushed, Nancy's had enough and tells Donald to come wake her up in 20 minutes so he can arrest Freddy when she pulls him out. Donald now thinks that Nancy is truly off her rocker and doesn't believe a word she says. But that doesn't stop Nancy from setting up some booby traps Home Alone style. And she tucks her mother into bed to go sleepy time. Jesus, she did all of this in 20 minutes? Nancy really doesn't fuck around. It's time for the final showdown, so Nancy goes to sleep and tracks Freddy down to his boiler shed, where he gives chase and things get a bit extreme. But time is running out for Nancy, so she tackles the fuck out of Freddy just as her alarm wakes her up. But Freddy is nowhere to be seen. Well, I guess it looks like she is a nutjob after all.
I'm crazy after all.
Oh, wait, never mind, there he is. How you getting on, Freddy? Nancy then manages to beat the fuck out of Freddy with all of her booby traps. And then leads him downstairs and sets the fecker on fire. But don't worry about Freddy, as that fire somehow evolves him into Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger. It's only once the whole house is on fire that Donald and the other police burst into the house, but they are too late to arrest Freddy as he's gone upstairs after Nancy's mother. Nancy rushes to save her mother and gives Freddy a wicked chair shot. But as Donald tries to put the fire out with a blanket, we learn that it's far too late for Nancy's mother. What the fuck is going on? None of this makes sense at all. Donald, being a bit shook from all of this, leaves Nancy alone in the room, and that's when Freddy strikes. But Nancy knows how to beat Freddy and how to take away all of his power.
I take back every bit of energy I gave you.
She knows the most powerful thing you can do to someone is to blank them.
They blanked me. That's like an awesomely powerful thing to do in civilized society.
Nancy walks out into a brand new day where her mother and all her friends are still alive and well. Wait a second, that fucking car looks like Freddy! Fuck! And the movie film is dushed. So does this film still hold up to this day over 30 years later? For the most part, yes. The film still has an amazing atmosphere and some brilliant kills and strong characters. Heather Langenkamp is great in the role of Nancy and brings a strong personality to the part, allowing Nancy to stand out amongst other scream queens. She takes the fight right to Freddy and takes charge of the film, and you're rooting for her the whole time. The rest of the cast do a good job in making you like their characters, even if Glenn is a bit of a useless shite. But the true standout of the film is Robert Englund as Freddy. Englund gives one of the truly great horror performances as he brings a true air of horror and a sinister presence to the film whenever Freddy is on screen. But new viewers who have only seen clips of Freddy will be surprised to see that this isn't the wisecracking Freddy they have heard of. That came later on, starting in part 3. Here Freddy is a much more sinister and terrifying figure, one that if you met in your dreams would truly frighten the shite out of you. He's not used for laughs here, but still has some moments where he's clearly enjoying tormenting his victims. He's much more of a boogeyman in this film, and is probably when he is at his most terrifying. Freddy would go on to become a true horror icon and now stands as one of the greats of horror. The film's overall creepy atmosphere is also enhanced by its truly amazing score by Charles Bernstein. But there are some faults, as watching it now, a lot of the effects don't hold up that well, like the arms stretching out and Freddy's face coming off. But then other effects hold up really well. Comparing Freddy pushing through the wall with the 2010 remake is no comparison. The CGI of the new one just looks awful, while the simple effect in the original still holds up so well. And Tina's death is still a haunting scene and one of the best deaths in all of horror. Also, the ending is just a serious what the fuck situation. It wasn't what Craven wanted, and it shows, as the ending is very goofy and just there to give you a hook for a sequel that Craven never intended. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic in the horror genre. It helped elevate the slasher genre from just being about a killer with a knife and added some fantasy elements to it. It's a film that should be seen by any horror fan. I give A Nightmare on Elm Street 8 out of 10 Horshes.